How do you plan the cameras? Like, do you like go ahead of time and know the room?
Yeah, we scout locations, and then we have a fantastic team of guys who have worked on hidden camera shows for years. The cameramen. Originally, when the show was, it all started as these little short spots on Jay Leno's Tonight Show, and there we had these RoboCams. So people were up, there was no actual cameraman.
Yeah, you just press buttons behind the room.
It was like a little monitor up top, and we kind of adjust with a joystick, zoom in.
So what happens if someone figures it out? Someone knows Michael or...
We're going into the writing room next week for the next order. So I am reviewing all the episodes from the last order.
How long does that take you?
To review?
Yeah.
Well, they're each a half hour, and there's 10 episodes in order.
Yeah,
so.
like how long will a half episode take you?
How long are you filming?
Yeah, okay, so shooting 10 episodes takes... We're in the writing room for about a month, and then pre-production for about a month, and then 2.5 months on location shooting. You have no idea. It's a team of passionate, creative people who are really into it, and we're all big fans of Michael. And Michael, we've all been friends for a very long time.
Yeah.
Michael and I have known each other since he was 15 and I was 18. I'm a couple years older than he is. And you gotta want it. Here's a guy, he has more ability to sort of dive in 100% right now in his life. He's married, but he doesn't have kids. I got 2 kids, 4 and 6. 2 sons, 2 little boys. And so that's a new priority for me. Any creative endeavor, I'm a big fan of being self-employed. And I don't know if you're thinking of being a freelance writer. You also have to go on location. You have to show up to the page without a boss. Without someone saying, "Where are you? It's time."
Yeah,
that's a real challenge. But it takes a real discipline. And there's no shortcuts to making it. So really, I encourage you to, really allow yourself to follow the path that is most exciting to you, because you're going to need that excitement to generate the energy and the momentum to keep moving forward, even when it's a challenge or if it's a slow period or passion. Though I do want to, I feel so blessed that I get to, I'm a magician.
That's
right?
Cool.
And I decided when I was 10 years old that this is what I was going to do.
So actually one of my questions is, who inspired you? Speaking of what inspired you to become a magician?
Well, I got a magic kit when I was 10. I traded. My buddy had I had a chemistry set, and my buddy had a magic kit, just collecting dust in his closet. And we traded. The chemistry set, to me, it smelled like fart, sulfur, and it was not interesting to me, not my passion. He thought, hey, that stuff's kind of interesting. This kit had tricks. Like, I was 10, and there was a couple of tricks in there that I could do, that I spent the time to figure out and practice, and then I did it for friends, and I did it for grown-ups. And they were like, whoa, what? That's incredible. And I got that wonderful wash of adrenaline that comes when we do something. Any kind of achievement,
I'm going to actually start a formal interview, like the question I have listed here.
Oh, sure.
So, what is the toughest part about being a magician for you?
I would say it's that self-discipline.
Motivation.
Not having a boss, not having, as a student, there's this luxury of having teachers and guidance counselors and authority figures carve out a syllabus for your week. Mm-hmm. And as a self-employed artist, I'm responsible for that. And
it's like a diet, right?
When I work, you can go with the path of least resistance. I work as a consultant on the Carbonaro Effect, and there's a hard deadline. So we got to show up every day, Monday through Friday, in like office hours. Okay. We get together and use our creative minds all day, 8-hour days for weeks, creating the ideas. Now, someone else is telling me, hey, I'm going to give you a paycheck, you're going to come up with these ideas, and this is our deadline. So now I have this engine, this motivation. Right. When I'm just working on my own act, the hardest thing is to wake up in the morning and instead of immediately go play with my kids or, check out what's going on Netflix or cruise the internet, is to sit down and say, hey, honey, I'm married, beautiful partner, she's a full-time mom. I say, hey, I'm going to shut the door and I'm going to do my work. Yeah. Alone in my office with no one saying, hey, there's a deadline. That's the hardest.
For you, do you show your kids the magic? Like, if you have a new trick that you're maybe working on, do you show them to see if you can work out the flaws?
No, I don't work out the flaws on them. I have a group of really great magicians.
Okay.
There's a club in LA called the Magic Castle,
Okay.
and it's one of the reasons I stay living in LA. I mean, part of us thinks I grew up in Minnesota, and I'd kind of like to raise my kids there. I think about that a lot. We're looking at homes there. We don't own in LA, but we're thinking about maybe buying a house in Minnesota, being closer to my parents, and just better school systems.
That must be hard being away from your parents and family.
And family.
I think it's tough, I think it's tough for my folks to be that far away from their grandkids.
Yeah.
And I see how close they are and how much they love. I see my boys get bummed when we leave Minnesota after a holiday, But yeah, that's the challenge, to self-generate motivation.
So you performed on America's Got Talent and Penn and Teller, so I'm going to ask you about America's Got Talent. How did the opportunity to perform actually come up? So did someone recommend you? Did you reach out to them?
Yeah,
How's
I
that
was
process?
reticent. I'd received emails from producers over the course of the first 10 years of that show. I was on season 10. And I'd always kind of poo-pooed it a little bit, like, I'm an artist. It's a competition. Who are these judges? What right? I'd seen them judge other magic acts, and they don't know what they're talking about.
Very political, right?
What's that?
Very political.
I don't know if it's political. It's what it is driven by the producer's need to tell a good story.
Okay.
So I've seen great acts painted as hack or lame.
Okay.
Because that makes a more exciting beat in the course of a 2-hour episode. And these producers, there's a whole floor at Fremantle in Burbank, California, of people at desks watching footage of interviews and coming up with, okay, what's going to be the angle on this act and what's going to make it interesting. I had a buddy of mine who's an amazing illusion builder. He created all the illusions for Disney's Mary Poppins. He's done a lot of stuff for David Copperfield. He's very respected in the community. His name is Jim Steinmeier, and he's written great books. He's an amazing author. These historic-based books on magic, Hiding the Elephant, Chung Ling Soo, the Glorious Deception, the story of Chung Ling Soo. I'm telling you this so you can maybe find these books and read them. I mean, it is great reporting and historical reporting that is like a page-turner, So he said, hey, I've worked with other people. Never forget this. It's 10% talent show, 90% reality. And I kept that in mind on my journey and really was able to sort of, create a stump speech for my interviews that focused on being a dad, the importance of my kids, wanting to be around, not on the road so much, right? That helped me with that backstory, which is such a big part of that show. How I got on the show, the year before I was on, Matt Franco won.
Oh, yeah.
And he's a magician. He was a buddy of mine. That led to an opportunity for him to do a NBC TV special.
Okay, yeah, I remember that.
And so he knew that I worked with Michael. He knew that I had consulted and was a performer on MTV's Room 401, that I've been a person who has worked magic for television in the past. So he called me right away and was like, would you be sort of my head magic producer guy for the show? I couldn't for the whole run of the show, but for a month we were in the writing room together, creating the foundation of what would be his NBC special.
Okay.
At that table, he said, "Why don't you do America's Got Talent?" And I was like, and I told him everything I told you, like, it's the competition, and it's less about the art, and it's more about drama, and he's like, yeah, and he forwarded my videotapes to the producers, and they got in touch and were like, look, we're really into what you do, because they need good acts. They need professional acts. It's a primetime television show. They want really good acts. So I was honored that they were that, and they were like, we'll make it easy for you. You won't do the cattle call. I didn't have to go and stand in that long line. Like, my first audition was with cameras in a big theater in LA with the judges. Oh, there's cattle call. There's people waiting around before you get to that theater stage. Before you get to that first round, there's pre-auditions.
So there's even a tryout beforehand.
Yeah, and you're in a long line. You go into a tent in a parking lot, and there's one producer and a video camera. And they're like, all right, do your thing. And then, all right, and what's your story? They choose. I'm telling you, they choose people. They choose great acts and they choose horrendous acts.
On purpose?
So there can be. They hide that there's something beforehand. I think they show video footage of those people standing in lines.
They do, yeah. They do.
Absolutely, yeah.
But see, like that, like they do in a way, so like they made it seem like you might stand in a line. The way they put things together.
That's right.
I wouldn't know that you didn't stand in line. Which is interesting.
And it is amazing. The how I was aware of their power to to totally manipulate the story for good or for bad.
Yeah.
My first audition, I walked out and I do a joke. I say, Mel B was like, "You have boys, you have kids." I'm like, "Yes, I have two very young boys." And they're like, "Oh, great." And I'm like, "Yeah, our youngest just took his first step."
Yeah.
And the audience goes, "Oh," and I go, "Yeah, he admitted he is powerless over drugs and alcohol," which is the first step of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a joke, right? That my kid would be taking this first step. And I do this joke at clubs. It's one of my jokes, and it's a funny joke. And the audience laughed, and she was like, "What was that?" And I was like, "I made a recovery joke about my child, you know," and that got a laugh. And then she's like, "Well, all right, well, tell us what you do." What aired on TV was, "You have kids?" "Yes, our youngest just took his first step." Cut to the audience. "Oh." And then cut back to Mel B going, "Well, let's see what you got." Not really. I mean, walking around backstage, sometimes in the Dunkin' Lounge. The Dunkin' Donuts was a sponsor my year. And there was a thing where we hung out, you know, Heidi Klum.
Did you actually get like all those donuts? Is it, or do you like? Do
No!
they give you donuts? No.
No. And what was?
They lied.
You know what? America's Got Talent. Dunkin' Donuts was the sponsor, and the coffee was Folgers.
No, really?
Yes.
That's terrible.
It's a big lie.
That's kind of funny though that they do it. So how has America's Got Talent changed your life?
You know what? Here's where it had the power of transformation for me. I got to play Radio City Music Hall.
Yeah, that's big.
I got to take the material that I've worked on for the better part of 20 years, and I got to stand center stage at Radio City Music Hall in New York City to a sold-out room, and my material killed.
Yeah, that's funny.
That room ate it up. So that told me, wow, it worked. You know, like my effort has created material that is good, solid, primetime worthy entertainment. And that has been wind in my sails. It's given me just great confidence, and was really, really a wonderful encouragement, you know, because I think there's a lot of creators out there who, you know, they work their butts off and they never get to really put it to the test. Maybe they don't have the opportunity to play such a, you know, iconic place, you know. It's like Carnegie Hall, you know. It's like, well, like they say, New York. If you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. And I feel like through that process of America's Got Talent, I proved that I could make it in New York.
And you also performed on Penn and Teller Fool. So first of all, did Teller speak to you backstage?
Well, Teller and I are buddies.
Oh, you are? Okay.
And he does speak. And he speaks wonderfully. He actually was a professor of Latin.
Wow.
Before he went full-time magic. Okay. So he is he doesn't just know language, he's a master of language. I can't recommend enough a movie he directed called Tim's Vermeer. Okay. If you're interested in documentaries and art. A technician, an engineer, created a replica of Vermeer, who was a very famous artist. And when he was an artist, people didn't know how he was getting such photorealistic painting. This is before photographs. And this engineer, this guy Tim, a buddy of Penn Jillette's, had a theory. Maybe he was using a camera obscura, and it goes through the process. And it's inspiring. I took my wife, and she was like, that blew my mind.
And speaking of that, they use code to tell you what you did. So how do you know what they're talking about? Do you just know like different words, or do they signal? You know, or like do they cut things out?
No, they actually kind of hammered it home. You know, they were using like some heavy-handed double meanings and stuff, and it's like part of me was I want to say, yeah, I get it. Enough. Stop. You got it. I will tell you, I regret doing that show with the material I did. I did one of my favorite routines because here's what's interesting about the power of intention when you have something you want to do.
Yeah.
My wife and I, at the top of that year, January, first couple weeks of January, were like, okay, well, you know, we got a good momentum. I was working a lot, you know, full-time professional and supporting the whole family, and she's full-time mom. And we're like, how do we move it to the next level? And we thought, well, TV, you know, we need to get on TV. And within a week of that decision, the producers from AGT sent the email, hey, we'd like you to be on the show, and Fool Us sent an email, hey, we'd like you to be on the show. Like, so that kind of blows my mind. Like, you set an intention, and the universe answers pretty quick when you're serious. Speaking
of like cool messages, like, do you have any message for students here at Sandburg?
Yeah. Show up to your own dream. Show up to the desk, to the easel, to the rehearsal room on a regular basis. And don't worry about sucking, okay? Just do it every chance you get. And if there's people who are interested in live performance, find the venues, find the open mics. It's about flight time. You know, there was a book called Outliers.
Oh, yes.
And I believe it was Outliers talked about the 10,000 hour idea.
Okay.
That, you know, it's people who really achieve greatness have done their thing for 10,000 hours. Bill Gates coded in high school for 10,000 hours. You know, this rehearsal 10,000 hours. And you got to get in front of people. You got to know what it is to do it. Don't think, oh, I'm going to perfect it and then I'm going to put it up. Screw that. Especially now, you're in high school. You guys can do anything and you're bulletproof because you don't have to support a family of 4 right now. You know, that comes later. Right now you can get up and you can fail and you can succeed, and there's nothing better than learning through experience. So I'd say if there's someone interested in doing what I do, find a local coffee shop and say, hey, can I host an open mic on Thursday nights? Generate the opportunity. Don't wait for someone else to say it's okay.
Like, what goes through your mind in having kids who look up to you as a role model?
If that is the case, I'm blessed, you know, and I think about that. You know, I think about the responsibility of really never phoning it in, you know, never going, well, this show doesn't matter, or, I mean, I performed Radio City Music Hall, I performed in a garage in Delaware, back to back sometimes. Wow. The most pristine venue. You guys have an incredible performing arts center here. This is great. This is easy. You know, I can go in here and I know this is going to go well because it has the facility. I was talking with my friend Whitney Cummings. She's a comic, pretty filthy comic. She's great though. She created the show Two Broke Girls, so she made a ton of money. She's a big success story. Just wrote a book. She's doing a book tour. She's really killing it. And she plays the worst room in LA, the belly room at the Comedy Store. I mean, it's late at night and it sucks. And I asked her, why do you do that? And she's like, because I play that room and I struggle. And then I go to a good venue and I'm unstoppable. So, you know, pushing yourself to be uncomfortable, to work in a space that's less than ideal and still deliver the A game, then you can take that like a warrior into any circumstance and just destroy, you know?
Yeah, thank you. And my last question is, whenever I interview somebody, I ask them to sign a baseball. So would you be able to sign a baseball?
Yeah, baseball. Are you into baseball?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I'll sign a baseball. Talk about creating your own opportunity. When I was in high school, my buddy was a busboy at a TGI Fridays. And he was like, listen, man, this is the place. You got to come in here. And I put it off, and he really hounded me. It's like, you got to come in here and do close-up magic here at TGI Fridays.
So you kind of started basically there.
I went and I set up a meeting with the general manager, and I said, I'm a magician. I did some research. Some guys who had success doing close-up magic in restaurants. They helped me come up with a pitch, you know, sort of a little speech to sell. And I sat down with that manager, and I was nervous. My mouth was dry. I was still like, and as a magician, I can fill in the gaps when the kitchen is behind, and I create a positive memory that will make, you know, blah, you know, I had my spiel. And he's like, okay, come in and do, we'll try you out on brunch, Sunday brunch for a month. And then after a month, he's like, I'm going to have you come in Friday and Saturday nights.
Wow.
And for 9 years, at one point in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis, I was working 7 nights a week, doing 2 to 4 hours sometimes of roving close-up magic at tables, you know, putting it out there. And that's where I was getting my 10,000 hours. And talk about a bulletproof environment. You know, if something goes wrong at one table, well, I got 50 other tables before the end of the evening. You're sticking around for the show?
Yeah, for sure.
A big part of my voice and something that I'm really interested in theatrically is the idea of the mistake or the flaw.
Yeah.
So I've engineered into my routine things that like, oh, this is goofing up. And then as a surprise, whoa, it didn't. You know, it all worked. I like that because the subtle unconscious thing I'm trying to communicate is a lot of magicians are, I am a magician, I am a man of power, and I control everything. I'm a little out of control. And I like this idea of like, well, magic exists, and I can tap into it sometimes, but it's maybe not really me.
It gives you a good
maybe
personality.
It's us. Yeah.
It gives you a really nice personality that a lot of magicians don't have.